It's 2016, the year that the DC Cinematic Universe is starting to become a thing. They started off back in March with Batman v Superman, kind of started off on the wrong foot with all the negative response that movie got, but we're here 5 months later with their next highly anticipated movie, Suicide Squad. So did DC right their wrongs, or should we all just commit Suicide Squad or something? Because they still can't get it right. Well, let's take a look and find out. Suicide Squad is a team of villains. It's an idea that comes from Amanda Waller. She believes that because Superman is dead, it might mean that the next Superman that comes around won't be as nice as Superman. So she wants to have the team of villains so that if anything goes wrong or they die, they're just expendable people and no one will care about it. The team is consisted of some of DC's favorite villains, from Deadshot to Harley Quinn to Captain Boomerang to Killer Croc to Diablo, I guess, and everyone's favorite character that dies after 3 minutes of screen time, Slipknot. Leading up to this movie, everyone was super happy with the trailers because they kept the story under wraps a little bit and they didn't show off who the true villain was, and so everyone was super excited about that. But it turns out the reason the story was super well hidden in the trailers is because there's hardly any story at all. Basically, the movie is only about the team being created and then going in to stop this major threat in Midway City. That's it. And having a minimal story like that is okay as long as the characters are good characters. But are the characters in Suicide Squad good? Yes, they are good. But are they used properly? No, they are not used properly at all. They are very fun characters. I really enjoy watching these people on screen, and it's cool to see some of these characters that we've never seen before, like Killer Croc, Harley Quinn, Deadshot. We've never seen these guys on a movie screen before, so it's really cool to see them. But they're not really given a whole lot to do. Throughout the majority of the movie, when they're walking through the city, they just kind of wander around. There's little to no interaction between any of the characters. The most lines of dialogue that they have between each other is like 3 lines max. And that really bothered me. It didn't really feel like they were an actual team. It just felt like they were individuals walking around in a group. And I get that that might be part of the thing is because they are antisocial and they don't like each other and they don't like that they have to be in this team where they'll probably die. But it would have been nice to see them actually communicate with each other and have more fun with each other. They don't really have fun with each other. Yes, when they do have dialogues with each other, they really do work out. Their interactions are pretty awesome and pretty funny. It's just that we don't see a whole lot of them at first. And a lot of the characters are pretty underdeveloped at first. I'm going to get back to why I'm saying at first here in a second. Yeah, at first, there's not a whole lot of development for most of the characters. We get pretty deep development for Deadshot and Harley Quinn, and Rick Flag, I guess. But we don't know a whole lot about these other guys like Diablo, Captain Boomerang, and Killer Croc. They're just kind of there. But going into the third act of the movie, they reach an issue and they're able to break off from being a part of the squad without dying, and they go into this bar. And inside of this bar, they have a really awesome scene. But they actually have dialogue with each other, and we actually learn more about Diablo's backstory and why he's the way that he is about his powers. And there's good, like I said, there's good interaction between all the characters. You know, this was the David Ayer that I knew. You know, it reminds me of the scene in Fury when they go into that house to have a lunch with the French people. I think they're French. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie in forever. But they go into the house and like John Barenthal's character is trying to sleep with the lady and she's scared and they're all just kind of getting upset with each other. It's a really good scene, and this bar scene reminds me of that a lot because we learn more about these characters and their motivations. And I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of that from our characters. Like I said, they are really fun characters. We just don't get a whole lot from them until the end of the movie. And like I said, the story isn't the best thing in the world. It works. It gets us from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. It's just not told in the best way. It's kind of a messy movie. You know, when the movie starts off, it is a complete jumbled mess. I felt so lost about everything. They had all these different characters, all these different story plots that they were trying to just like squeeze into this first act of the movie. The first act of the movie is probably, 30 minutes long, and there's all this information that they're just throwing at us about all these characters, and you're like, slow down, slow down. And then they get into the second act of the movie where they actually go into the city as the team, and you're like, is this movie almost over? And no, it just turns out they're in that part of the city for a very long time, and you're like, you could have used this extra time to help develop the characters more, develop the story more, and just sort of give this first act of the movie a little bit of a slower pace. The third act of this movie really saves it for me. You know, the action scenes throughout the movie are pretty cool. They face off against mindless drones like in the Avengers, both the Avengers, and everything. And I get that it's kind of hard not to do that when you have a team. It's kind of hard to have them just face off one threat. But in the third act of the movie, that is what they do. They just face one villain. And I actually really, really liked the action scene. It was really well shot. You know, David Ayer did a really good job of making a comic book movie look like a comic book brought to the big screen. And also in this third act, we kind of get some more emotional beats to it. You know, without spoiling too much, the villain is able to show our villainous heroes the things that they truly want in life. And this was a really cool scene because, again, we get to see more of what these characters are and what they want from their lives, and we get to see that they might not be the worst people in the world. You know, even though they do villainous things, they aren't terrible human beings. And that was actually one thing I was kind of worried about, was how are they going to portray these villains as villains? You know, when we see a movie where we have a protagonist, we're always going to see them as heroes. So I was like, are we going to be able to see these heroes as villains? And I think for the most part, they did a pretty good job about that. You know, I ended up hating Amanda Waller more than what I hated any of the villains on the Suicide Squad, which I think was kind of, you know, it's kind of meant to be that way. She's supposed to be a mean person because she has to deal with these terrible people. But I think, you know, like, yeah, for the most part, they did a good job of showing that these people actually are villains. And just one other minor thing that really did bother me was the musical choices in the movie. I hate to compare movies to each other, especially when it's a Marvel movie and a DC movie. But with what Guardians of the Galaxy did with having a musical soundtrack, or I guess a soundtrack with modern music in it, they include the music in the story. You know, Awesome Mix was something that Star-Lord carried around. And so in the beginning of the movie, when he's listening to Come and Get Your Love, he's actually dancing to that song while exploring this ruin. But with Suicide Squad, they had, you know, the same sort of thing, but rather than it actually being part of the story, it was just soundtrack. And so it made it kind of feel like it was a movie from the mid-2000s, like a teen comedy from the mid-2000s that was just like, hey, listen to this super cool song we have. And one of the bigger issues is it was such a mixed bag of genres. Like when they released the soundtrack list, it looked like it was all just modern alternative music, which I was okay with. But when you get into the movie, 1 minute they're singing, when they lay me down to die, I'm going up to the spirit in the sky. And then the next minute, it has, guess who's back? Back again. Shady's back. Tell a friend. And you're just like, what? How do we get from Norman Greenbaum to Eminem? There were just strange musical choices, and where they put the music didn't really fit in. You know, there's a scene where they're testing to see how much of a dead shot is, and they start playing Kanye West over it, and you're just like no, this is making the scene not as cool. Even though it's a cool song, you're like, it's kind of taking away from the scene. But I don't know, that's all just personal opinion. Obviously this whole thing's a personal opinion, but that's just kind of a thing that bothered me a little bit about the movie. You know, but giving this movie a quote-unquote rating, you know, I'm just gonna say, but was it entertaining? And I would say yes, it was an entertaining movie. You know, the first half of it is kind of a jumbled mess, but it really does pick up itself up as the movie progresses, which is kind of rare. It just, you know, it starts at the bottom of the hill and it just keeps climbing towards the top, which was really, it was good. I'm glad that it turned out that way, because I was worried that I wasn't going to find any enjoyment out of it and just be annoyed by the music the entire time. But by the third act, I really did end up enjoying the movie a whole lot. The characters were a lot of fun. The action scenes were really awesome. The movie looked really good. So overall, I would say it was a very entertaining movie. And yeah, so I guess we don't have to commit Suicide Squad or whatever. And yeah, this is the first review that I'm doing. Reviews are a lot harder than what they seem, apparently, because this is like my third version of the review. The other one was like 20 minutes and then 15 minutes and now 10 minutes, hopefully. Because I could just ramble on forever.